Welcome to HeartWired, Emotionally Intelligent Leadership for an AI World, the podcast where technology meets humanity. I'm Dr. MJ, and I build emotionally intelligent leaders who can lead with heart while embracing innovation. Today, we're diving into something that's both timeless and urgently needed: the real human superpower. It's not strength, it's or speed, or even in traditional intellect. It's something deeper, quieter, and infinitely more powerful. It's our ability to feel, to understand, and to connect with others. That's what emotional intelligence is all about. And in a world increasingly driven by algorithms and data, this human superpower might be the one thing that keeps us truly human. Before we dive any deeper, let me tell you why this matters to me personally. I spent over 20 years working with leaders, from banking executives to emergent entrepreneurs, and I've seen a pattern. The leaders who struggle aren't the ones lacking in technical skills or even strategic thinking. They're the ones who can't read the room, who react instead of respond, who mistake efficiency for effectiveness. They've optimized everything except their humanity. This is why the podcast is named HeartWired. The term refers that human decision making and leadership are connected to our emotions, our values, and lived experience. In other words, our emotional intelligence. I chose this name deliberately. We talk about being hardwired for certain behaviors as if our brains were fixed circuits. The truth is, it's more beautiful than that. We're hardwired, constantly shaped by our emotional experiences, our connection, and our capacity for empathy and growth. We live in a time when you can ask an app, write a poem, or I'm going to plan a vacation, or even, how am I feeling today? But technology can't understand how you really feel. It can't sit beside you when your heart is heavy or when it's time to celebrate your great achievements. So, that capacity to connect heart to heart is something no machine can replicate. And yet, it's something we risk losing if we don't nurture it intentionally. I love metaphors because they help us frame complex concepts. When I think about emotional intelligence, I see a stellar constellation like Aquarius or Virgo. On my early morning treks to my spin class, I look up at the stars just before dawn. The sky is still dark and the world is quiet. I have an app on my phone that draws lines between the star clusters to show the connections ancient people saw when naming them. Here's what moves me about those constellations. The stars themselves are millions of miles apart, burning independently in the darkness. But ancient astronomers saw patterns, drew connections, created meaning from those scattered points of light. Emotional intelligence is like those constellations, but not just one skill or ability, a set of many. Just as the app draws lines between the clusters to shape our understanding of the universe, our emotional intelligence draws a picture of who we are in the world. And here's the beautiful part: just like those ancient astronomers, we get to choose which connections we draw, which patterns we strengthen, and which version of ourselves we hope to become. That's the power of neurotransplicity, which is at work. Our brain isn't fixed. Our motion patterns aren't permanent. Every choice you make is drawing new lines between the stars of your experience. Emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive, to understand, manage, and use emotions effectively in our lives and within internally, as well as with others. Now, there are no good or bad emotions. They're information, they're data. emotional data. They tell us what matters to us. It reveals those emotions reveal our needs, our values, and the points of our deepest priorities. When we ignore these emotional signals, we lose access to this incredibly rich source of wisdom within ourselves. We start making decisions based only on logic. And believe me, logic is very valuable. I use it all the time to make decisions, but that's only half the stories. Our brains are wired for emotion. The limbic system, the emotional center, and the prefrontal cortex, the rational center, are constantly in conversation. And the healthier we make that connection between the two, the better we're at making balanced, wise decisions. And that's where the neuroplasticity comes in. Every time you choose to pause before reacting, or to breathe before responding, or to name what you're really feeling, you're literally strengthening that new neural pathway. You're sculpting your brain to handle emotion with greater intelligence. Emotional intelligence isn't fixed. It's not like IQ, which tends to stay the same throughout life. EQ can grow, expand, strengthen, just like a muscle. And there are four key dimensions: self awareness, self management, social awareness, and relationship management. Self awareness is the ability to recognize the name and name what you're feeling, not just I'm fine, I'm stressed. When you hear somebody say, I'm fine, well, are they really fine? Are they calm? Are they content? Have they resigned to their station in life? Or I'm stressed. What kind of stress? Is it anxious anticipation of something happening, or is it quiet overwhelm? The clearer your emotional vocabulary, the more power you'll have to understand yourself and less likely to be hijacked by your feelings. Let me give you a concrete example. Last week, I was preparing for a keynote speak. I kept telling myself I was fine, but my body knew differently: tight shoulders, shallow breathing. And I found myself checking my email obsessively. When I finally sat with it, I realized I wasn't anxious about the content. I was excited and nervous about meeting people's expectations. That's a completely different emotional state than general anxiety, and it required a different response. So instead of trying to calm myself down, what I did was I added that way of channeling that energy I was feeling into the passion I had for the topic. You see the difference? It's a little different. So ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What is that feeling trying to tell me? That a question alone can transform your day. And it's not about having the right emotions, it's about having the right awareness of what emotions show up. Self management is choosing how you respond once you aware of what you feel. Or sometimes we don't recognize what we feel, and that's where the self management falls down. It's the art of responding instead of reacting. It's saying no when you need to protect your energy. It's taking a deep breath before you hit that email you know you shouldn't send. It's discipline, self control, adaptability, motivation, trustworthiness, and optimism in motion. But it's also about integrity, staying grounded in your values even when things get hard. I love facilitating discussions about self management because this is where people often feel the most stuck. They know what they're feeling, that's self awareness part, but they don't know how to do anything productive with those feelings. Here's what I tell leaders and teams I work with: self management isn't about suppressing your emotions, it's about choosing the timing and method of expression. You can be angry and still be professional. You can be disappointed and be constructive. You can feel overwhelmed and still show up. The key is the pause, and that's the space between the stimulus we receive and our response. And that is moving that initial response from our limbic brain over to our executive brain or the prefrontal cortex. Viktor Frankl wrote about this beautifully. In that space lies your freedom, your power to choose. Sometimes the pause is just a breath, and sometimes you need to walk around the block. Sometimes it's sleeping on a decision before you make it. Social awareness expands that same sensitivity, but this time outward. It's the ability to read the room. It's also noticing what kind of shift is the energy having? When does somebody withdraw? To sense what others might even be feeling when they're not even saying a word. That's empathy in action, not pity, not fixing, but understanding. That understanding builds trust. And that's the pillar of strength to support the next cluster. I'm moved by watching leaders develop this capacity. I remember working with a technical manager who was brilliant at solving problems, but struggled with his team morale. And it was his social awareness that really made it difficult. So, what we did was working to slow down, arriving 5 minutes early to notice who seemed to be energized, who seemed to be depleted. We practice asking better questions, not how's the project, but how are you doing with all this? Getting to the feelings of the individuals. The shift was remarkable, not because he became a different person. He's still who he is, but because he started paying attention to the emotional data in the room along with the technical data. Social awareness means understanding organizational dynamics, cultural differences, and power structures. It's recognizing that the quietest person in the room may have the most valuable insight, but needs to be invited to share it. Relationship management is where all the pieces come together. It's by using your awareness of yourself and others to bring those healthy human connections, to communicate clearly, to lead with compassion, resolve conflict without blame, and collaborate in ways that elevate everyone. These aren't soft skills, they're human competencies. I want to push back on that soft skill for a moment. There's nothing soft about having a difficult conversation with someone you respect. There's nothing soft about giving feedback that's both honest and kind. There's nothing soft about building trust in a team that has been fractured by conflict. These skills are hard won and deeply valuable. Study shows that 90% of top performers score high in emotional intelligence, and it's no coincidence. It's a reflection of how essential these skills are in today's world. And many companies are hiring more for emotional intelligence than for technical skills. Logic can win arguments, but emotions win hearts. And leadership, real leadership, is about hearts. I've seen this play out in boardrooms and startups and nonprofits and tech companies. Leaders who build lasting impact aren't always the smartest person in the room. They're the ones who can inspire trust, navigate complexity, and help people feel seen and valued. Relationship management is also about conflict resolution, not avoiding conflict. That's impossible and unhealthy, but moving through conflict in ways that preserve dignity and strengthen understanding. It's about collaboration that doesn't just tolerate differences, but harnesses them. It's about building teams where people feel safe enough to take risks, to be vulnerable, and to bring their whole selves into work. If you haven't already, subscribe now to HeartWired and our guests who are connecting with the human touch while using AI capabilities. Yes, technology is advancing faster than ever before. AI systems can analyze, optimize, predict with stunning precision, and I adore them. I use them. I use an AI almost every day. But there's something they can't replicate, and that's the full depth of our feelings as humans. They can simulate empathy, they can mirror our tones. Some systems are even designed to detect emotion and respond what they consider appropriately, but that's still a limitation. It's not embodiment of the emotion. And believe me, I am not anti-technology, and that is not what this podcast is about. Far from it. I'm passionate about helping leaders work effectively with AI because AI is incredible and can do incredible things for our work, our and just for everything in our lives. But I'm equally passionate about people really working on their emotional intelligence because it is so critical to have the connection between AI and that full feeling of being human. So there's a big question that this whole AI world is really being asked of us as humans. Are we outsourcing our emotional lives to technology? Just think. Sometimes when you're lonely, we scroll. When we're anxious, we find something to distract us, usually on our cell phones. And when we're sad, we turn to algorithms that offer comfort without connection. It's easy, it's frictionless, but over time, it's really de-skilling us emotionally. Think about it this way. Every time you choose an algorithm over human interaction, you're making a trade. You're trading efficiency for the depth. You're trading convenience for the growth and the comfort for challenge. Sometimes that trade makes sense, but when it comes to being our full default, when we stop choosing and start defaulting, we're in trouble. If we let AI handle all of our easy emotions, the quick validations, the instant empathy, we might lose our capacity for the harder ones like disappointment or grief or vulnerability and having some honest conflict. That's dangerous, not for just individuals, but for our collective humanity because growth lives in those hard emotions. Courage is born here. Compassion deepens here. I'm reminded of a leader I coached who realized she was using her phone to avoid discomfort. When she was waiting in line, she'd scroll. When there's awkward silence, she'd go to her phone, she'd check emails. When feeling uncertain, she'd dive into productivity apps. She was never bored, never uncomfortable, but she also wasn't truly present, never fully with herself or with others. We worked on her capacity to sit with discomfort, to be present in the waiting, to notice what emerges in silence. It wasn't easy. Her brain had been trained to seek the dopamine hits of constant stimulation. But as she built that muscle, she found something surprising. The uncomfortable moments often held the most insight. The silence created that space for creativity. The waiting allowed for reflection. Recently, I attended an event with Jack Cass, a world renowned expert in applied AI. He was OpenAI head go to market and has been instrumental in building tangible business solutions using AI. It was one of the most inspiring speeches I've ever been to, and it was to a sold out audience. And it was just amazing. And he recently published a book called The Next Renaissance: AI and the Expansion of Human Potential. Zach spoke about the amazing things AI can do and will do for us in the future, and also to really improve the world we live in. It's an amazing time to live in this next renaissance. Zach said AI is forcing us to be more human with empathy, courage, and optimism. And in the final chapter of his book, his advice is simple: be human, emotional intelligence in my world. I sat that with that for days after the event. Be human. It sounds simple, almost trite, but what does it mean to be human in an age when machines can outperform us in so many different domains? It means leaning into what machines cannot replicate: our capacity for genuine connection, for moral reasoning, to looking for the right thing, feeling it's right, feeling is important. That creativity is born from emotional experience, and that empathy comes from shared struggles. And emotional intelligence embodies our humanity. Here's what I've come to understand through my work with leaders navigating this AI transition. The question isn't whether AI will replace human workers. The question is whether we choose to augment our human capacity or abdicate them. Will we use AI to free ourselves for deeper human connections, or will we use it to avoid messy, uncomfortable, yet beautiful work of being together with each other? Will we build teams that combine technological efficiencies with emotional wisdom, or will we optimize ourselves into isolations? These aren't hypothetical questions, they are choices we are making every single day. And how we design our workflows, how we structure our teams, how we spend our time. So we need to keep our emotional intelligence alive. So, really think about what you need to create that and how you can start thinking about emotional intelligence in yours. Because when leaders model emotional awareness and intelligence, they're giving permission for everyone else to be human too. That's how we build trust. That's how we strengthen the social fabric that technology can't replace. Emotional intelligence is not a luxury skill, it's a leadership imperative. It is what separates management from mentorship, information from insight, and reaction from reflection. And perhaps more importantly, it's what makes us beautifully, imperfectly, unmistakably human. So the next time you catch yourself scrolling mindlessly or reacting without thinking or numbing out when things feel hard, just pause. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What is this emotion trying to teach me? And that is where your power lies, not in suppressing your emotions, but understanding them and integrating them. This is the work, not once, but daily, not perfectly, but persistently. So I believe this is the most important work we can do right now, not just for organizational success, though that matters, not just for individual well being, although that matters too, but for our collective humanity. As we move deeper into this AI driven world, leaders who thrive will be the ones who can combine the brilliance of technology with the wisdom of emotional intelligence, who lead not just with their minds, but with their hearts. They'll be the ones who understand that while AI can optimize processes, only human can create meaning. While AI can analyze data, only humans can feel what matters. While AI can simulate connection, only humans can build community. While AI is impressive, our emotional intelligence makes us irreplaceable. And that gives me hope. Emotional intelligence isn't rare. It's not for a few, it's not for a select few. It's the capacity we all possess. The question is whether we choose to develop it or not. It's all potential. We all have the potential to be emotionally intelligent. So during the rest of the podcast, you'll see me interviewing people who are using AI in their work and are really being conscious of that human connection and the human factor that comes into play to make decisions to build the relationship. And this is what gives me hope, is that people are doing it. And so if you're learning about how can you keep your emotional intelligence alive and well in this AI world, listen to the podcast and listen to some of the people who are doing it every day, all the time, in different industries too. Every conversation that we have is an opportunity. Every conflict, there's a chance to practice. Every moment of discomfort is an invitation to grow. So you don't have to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. We're human. Just be willing to notice, willing to figure out what you're feeling and what to do with those things. So how can we be better humans? And I really feel really building up our emotional intelligence makes us better in that we are guided by our values, by our emotions about how we care about others, our social responsibility to the world. So be more connected, more compassionate, and more alive to the full range of what it means to be human in this remarkable, challenging, beautiful time we're living in. Thanks for joining me with this episode of HeartWired. And please stay tuned for more information. Some great leaders and thought leaders and executives who are willing to share their wisdom with us. If this conversation resonates with you, share it with someone who might need a reminder of their own human superpower. And remember, subscribe now. Thanks.